You're listening to the Matt the Stat Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Matt the Stat, where we talk about football, baseball, basketball, and everything sports. So today, for my show, I'll be talking to you guys about the Detroit Lions taking on the Baltimore Ravens on Monday Night Football in Baltimore, Maryland. And not only that, I'll have analysis and a recap of this ball game, and you certainly don't want to miss that. But before I get into the recap of the game, I hope you guys are enjoying your Wednesday afternoon. My Wednesday afternoon has been great so far up to this point. Beautiful day outside. I don't know how it is for you, but I know how it is for me. Beautiful day outside, and I really cannot complain. But getting into this ball game between the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens, we look at the Detroit Lions. The Lions, they had a bad loss against the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field to begin the season. Not a great day. A lot of questions about if Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions would be the same team after losing both their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator from last year. Of course, Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator, he is now the head coach of the Chicago Bears, and Aaron Glenn, who is now the head coach of the New York Jets. That being said, Detroit, they would end up bouncing back, and they would get a win in their home opener against the Chicago Bears, putting up 52 on the Bears in week 2 of the season. And for the Baltimore Ravens, they started their season on Sunday Night Football in Orchard Park in Buffalo, New York, against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. They would be up 40-25 before Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills would come all the way back to win it, and it was a Derrick Henry fumble that allowed the Buffalo Bills to get a comeback victory over the Baltimore Ravens in Week 1 on Sunday Night Football. Then in Week 2, the Baltimore Ravens, they would have their home opener against the Cleveland Browns, and they would go on to win that game handedly, 42-17 against the Cleveland Browns in the Ravens' home opener on Sunday afternoon. Then that leads us to this Monday Night Football game between the Detroit Lions and Baltimore Ravens. We talk about both sides having juggernaut-type offenses, explosive offenses, and really exciting game. You know, we talked about Lamar Jackson and how great he is. Then you have Jared Goff on the other side. You have Derrick Henry, who's been one of the best running backs in the NFL. And then on the other side with the Detroit Lions, you probably have one of the best duos at running back in the NFL with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. So going into this game, the Detroit Lions and Baltimore Ravens, big early matchup in Week 3 of the NFL season. And the Lions, they would start with the ball to begin the game, and they would start with a Jared Goff pass completion to Williams for a first down, then a Gibbs run. Then on a 3rd and 6, Goff would complete a pass again to Jamison Williams for a first, then a completion to Gibbs. Then on a 4th and 3, the Lions would convert with a complete pass to St. Brown for a first, and capped by a Gibbs rushing touchdown. And it's 7-0 Detroit to begin the game. The Lions go right down the field and get in the end zone on the very opening drive of the ball game. So the Lions offense off to a fast start to begin. Now the Baltimore Ravens, they get the ball, and they would start with a play-action pass to tight end Mark Andrews for a first, then an offsides on the Lions, followed by a Derrick Henry run for a first, then a quarterback keeper by Lamar Jackson for a first, then a completion to Andrews, capped by a Derrick Henry rushing TD, and we are tied at 7 apiece. And so both teams, the Detroit Lions and the Baltimore Ravens, starting with their opening drives of the game and going right down the field and getting in the end zone. So already a great start for both sides, and we're just talking about both of these offenses. Both of these offenses off to a hot start. But the Lions' next drive, they would go 3 and out. Then the Ravens would get the ball back. They'd start with a play-action pass to Charlie Kolar, but they really wouldn't do much else. They would end up going 3 and out, and so they would have to punt. So a couple of 3 and outs traded by both sides. The Lions would get the ball back, and they would start with a 3rd and 7, and they would convert on a 3rd and 7 with a Goff pass to Sam Laporta for a first down before the first quarter ended. Then Goff would have a play-action pass to running back Montgomery for a first down to start the second quarter. Then on a 3rd and 8, Goff would find Laporta again for a first. Then a toss play to Montgomery for a nice gain. And then there was an illegal contact penalty on the Ravens. There would be a good run from Montgomery, then a Goff sneak for a first down, then a Goff pass to Montgomery, capped by a David Montgomery rushing touchdown, and it's now 14-7 Lions. And that was definitely a long drive for the Detroit Lions. They were methodical. They just methodically moved the ball down the field. It ended up being a 10-minute drive. I think it was like 19 play drive. I think it was like an 18 play drive for the Detroit Lions. Pretty much took up literally most of the second quarter, a little over half of the second quarter. So by the time the Baltimore Ravens got the ball in the second quarter, I think there was only like 6.5 minutes in the second quarter. So a really good methodical drive by the Detroit Lions. They now lead 14-7. Took up a lot of time. Like I said, 10-minute drive. The Ravens would start with Lamar scrambling to his left, finding Bateman for a first, followed by a play-action pass to wide receiver Devontae Walker, the second-year man out of North Carolina. Then the Lions would stuff them at the goal line, and the Lions would end up getting the ball back. So a huge goal line stand by the Detroit Lions after their offense went on a long drive. The Ravens were moving the ball down the field, and then you get the big goal line stop by the Detroit Lions. So the Lions, they would end up starting their next drive on offense with an illegal contact penalty on Baltimore. But Lions, they wouldn't do much after that, and so they would end up giving the ball back to the Baltimore Ravens. So the next ensuing possession for the Baltimore Ravens, they would start with a Lamar Jackson run, then a Jackson pass completion to DeAndre Hopkins, then a defensive pass interference on the Lions, capped by a play-action pass to wide receiver Rashad Bateman for a touchdown. And we are now once again tied, but this time at 14 apiece. Then the Lions, they'd start with a couple of Goff completions, setting up a field goal attempt, which would end up being no good by Bates. And we go in tied at 14 at halftime. So both offenses really clicking in the first half. I mean, just like everyone thought, the game would get a bit loose. Both sides scoring on offense. The Lions looking just as good as they have done for the last couple of years. Their offense looking extremely explosive. The Baltimore Ravens offense looking explosive. And, really, to be honest with you, there wasn't really much defense in the first half of this game. I mean, both sides were scoring. The defenses, probably not so great. They were not They didn't really stop the Lions or the Ravens. So really both defenses for the Lions and the Ravens kind of shaky in the first half. But the second half would be a different story as we get into the second half here. And the Ravens, they would start with the ball to begin the second half, because the Lions, they started with the ball to begin the first half, so the Ravens will start with the ball to begin the second half. And the Ravens, they start with a pass to Henry, then an offsides on the Lions. Then on a third down, Lamar Jackson completes a pass over the middle to Zay Flowers for a first. Then a play-action pass to tight end Charlie Kolar for a first. Then another play-action pass from Jackson to Andrews for a first, capped by a Jackson TD pass to Mark Andrews. And now the Baltimore Ravens lead 21-14. And now it looks like, here comes the Ravens. And the Ravens looking really good up to this point. The Lions, they would start with a Gibbs run, then a Goff pass to Laporta to convert on a third down, then a trick play by the Lions with Goff completing a pass to St. Brown, followed by another completion to St. Brown for a touchdown. And it was man-to-man on the outside to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jared Goff pretty much just kind of like a go ball right down the field, and Jared Goff would hit Amon-Ra St. Brown what looked to be kind of a fade, and before you know it, the Lions have now tied this game at 21, and the next possession for the Ravens, they would end up going 3 and out. The Lions would start with a Montgomery run for a first, then another big run from David Montgomery, then a run by Gibbs, capped by a rushing touchdown by Jahmyr Gibbs, and it's now 28-21 Detroit Lions. And on that drive, the Detroit Lions, they just gashed the Baltimore Ravens big time in the run game with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and it's now 28-21 Detroit. Then the Ravens, they would start with a Jackson pass completion to Rashad Bateman for a first, a personal foul penalty on Detroit, then another completion to Bateman, then the drive stalls after Lamar is sacked twice on the drive, and the Ravens would have to settle for a field goal, and it's now 28-24 Detroit. So now we are in a critical part of the ball game here in the fourth quarter. The Lions are up 28-24, and if the Lions were to get another score, it would pretty much put this game away and not give the Baltimore Ravens a chance to get back into the game. So, the next possession, the Baltimore Ravens would end up stopping the Detroit Lions. They would go 3 and out. So the Ravens got the ball back. They'd start with a Derrick Henry fumble that would end up being punched out by defensive end Aiden Hutchinson, who the Detroit Lions really missed all of last season after Aiden Hutchinson broke his leg in Dallas last year and missed the rest of the season. And it kind of hurt that defense for the Detroit Lions last year when Aiden Hutchinson was out. Aiden Hutchinson, big part of that pass rush for the Detroit Lions, not just part of the pass rush, but a big part of that defense. The Lions really struggled to rush the passer for the rest of the season. And it was a struggle for the Detroit Lions, but getting Aiden Hutchinson back, Aiden Hutchinson looked really good. So he ends up punching the ball out of Derrick Henry's arms. The Lions would end up recovering it. The Lions would start with a face mask penalty, and the drive would stall after that face mask penalty, and the Lions would have to settle for a field goal. So it's 31-24. A field goal really does not take the Ravens out of the game. Baltimore, all that they have to do is get in the end zone, and this game is once again tied. So we'll see what the Baltimore Ravens do on their next drive. But they didn't do anything. They would end up going 3 and out on their next drive, and the Lions would start with a couple of runs with Gibbs. Then on a 4th and 2, Lions would go for it and convert with a play-action pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown on a 4th and 2. And just like we all thought, Dan Campbell, he's known to take gambles. Gambling on a 4th and 2, typical Dan Campbell, Detroit Lion-led offense, going for it on a 4th and 2 in a critical drive, because if the Lions don't convert on a 4th and 2, they would have given the ball back to the Baltimore Ravens, and you know how hard it is to stop that Baltimore Ravens offense. And, it was a gamble by the Detroit Lions, but it paid off. A play-action pass on a 4th and 2, completing it to Amon-Ra St. Brown going towards the sideline. And now the Detroit Lions, they look to be in prime position now to put this game away, and that's what the Lions did, because the next play, it would be capped by a David Montgomery rushing touchdown, and now the Lions lead 38-24 now. So a huge touchdown in the ball game for the Detroit Lions. The Ravens' next possession, they would start with a Jackson pass to Hill for a first, then a completion to Bateman. They end up capping it off by getting a touchdown pass to Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews' second receiving touchdown of the night. and the Ravens would go for two. They were unsuccessful, and it's now a 38-30 Lions lead. The Lions with no choice to go for an onside kick to try to get the ball back. The Ravens, not the Lions, but the Ravens going for an onside kick trying to get the ball back. The Lions would end up recovering it, and they would go on to win this game by the final score of 38-30. And you really got to see what the Detroit Lions are made of. But, huge statement win for the Detroit Lions, number one. That was the big thing. And you just look at these stats for the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff, he completed 20 of his 28 passes for 202 yards and 1 touchdown. David Montgomery had 12 carries for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs had 22 carries for 67 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 7 receptions for 77 yards. Jamison Williams had 2 receptions for 43 yards. Lamar Jackson completed 21 of his 27 passes for 288 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry had 12 carries for 50 yards. Mark Andrews had 6 receptions for 91 yards. Rashad Bateman had 5 receptions for 63 yards. And, the Detroit Lions, a huge statement win. The Baltimore Ravens, their next game, they play at Kansas City on Sunday afternoon. That's a big game to keep an eye on. Ravens and Chiefs. And then the Detroit Lions, they will head home to play against the Cleveland Browns. So those are the next 2 team schedules. Now, the next 2 teams' games. But here's the thing. Like I said already, big statement win for the Detroit Lions. And it wasn't just a big statement win for the Detroit Lions. It was a statement across the whole entire NFL that the Detroit Lions were still as good as we are, even if we don't have Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn there anymore. We are still a force to be reckoned with this season. So the Detroit Lions, really, to be honest with you, what I saw in the game, and especially against the Chicago Bears, is that this team is still for real. Jared Goff is still playing at an extremely high level. Same thing with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. They still have weapons all over at wide receiver. They still have Amon-Ra St. Brown. They still have Jamison Williams. Sam Laporta was awesome. He was kind of like the safety blanket for Jared Goff on Monday night. I just felt like on almost every third down situation, Jared Goff was looking Sam Laporta's way, and with good reason. Sam Laporta has been one heck of a tight end since he came into the league in 2023. Sam has been absolutely awesome, and I have to say he's up there with some of the best tight ends in the league right now, Sam Laporta. And the Detroit Lions showed that they are still a dangerous team and that they're still a force to be reckoned with. I just look at the Detroit Lions. They were balanced all night long. They mixed the run with the pass. They could show you that late in the game. They could run the football late in the game when need be. They could come up with the big play when need be. Just an absolute brilliant game from the Detroit Lions on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. And not only that, the Detroit Lions defense sacked Lamar Jackson 7 times in the game on Monday night. And that has to show you, now that Aiden Hutchinson is back for the Detroit Lions, this defense, this pass rush is dangerous for the Detroit Lions. And, there's always things that you need to work on. There's definitely some things the Lions defense needs to work on. But for the most part, I have to say, I really liked how the Detroit Lions defense and that pass rush made Lamar Jackson uncomfortable all night long. And they really did make Lamar Jackson uncomfortable. Lamar, there was times where, he just looked uncomfortable. So, here's the thing. The Detroit Lions, they're still one of the top teams in the NFC. If you look at the NFC in its entirety, the Detroit Lions are still one of the teams that is dangerous. and you have to put them up there as some of the top teams in the NFC and one of the top teams in the NFL. The Detroit Lions, just with that win Monday night, told the whole entire NFL, watch out. We're still coming. We're not washed up just because we lost our offensive coordinator and our defensive coordinator. We're still as good as ever. Dan Campbell did a great job going out and finding two new coaches, finding a new offensive coordinator and finding a new defensive coordinator. And Dan Campbell, I have to give him a lot of credit. He did an excellent job. I mean, the Lions, they are still a force to be reckoned with. I mean, this team was one of the best play-action football teams a season ago. I mean, they had a lot of success with the play-action passes. Once again, you saw them go play-action quite a bit in this game, still having success with that play-action pass. And, I mean, look, the Detroit Lions, you got it. You cannot count the Detroit Lions out. And that's what the Detroit Lions told you on Monday night. Don't count us out just because we played a good Green Bay Packer team in Lambeau Field and didn't look very good, and then come back in their home opener and beat the Chicago Bears, putting up 52 points. And, the Baltimore Ravens had put up 41 on the Cleveland Browns. So that being said, I mean, the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions, they were two of the highest scoring offenses at the end of week 2. And, I mean, this game was that and more. I mean, exciting ball game. Both offenses were explosive. The Lions able to mix the run with the pass. I mean, what else can I say? I mean, and if any of you have listened to my show, I've already told you how much I really do love Dan Campbell. I mean, he's a player's coach. And those guys definitely, if you watch the Detroit Lions play, those guys definitely are willing to run through a wall for Dan Campbell because, he played in the NFL. He has experience playing in the NFL. He knows what it's like. And, those guys come out ready to play for him every single week. And you saw it in this game on Monday night. The Detroit Lions were not going to let all the hype about the Baltimore Ravens bother them, and they came in and got a big win on the road against a really good team in the Baltimore Ravens. So what does that say about the Lions? Don't count them out, and look out, because the Detroit Lions, they are still one of the top teams in the NFC right now, and they're also still one of the top teams in the league. But we get to the Baltimore Ravens. Now, it's been an interesting couple of weeks for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they had it. They looked to have had a secure win against the Buffalo Bills week 1. They end up blowing it, and the Derrick Henry fumble, and then the Bills come back to win the game. And then last week, you saw the Baltimore Ravens dominate the Cleveland Browns. I mean, putting up another 40 points on the Cleveland Browns. So, look, the Baltimore Ravens, the offense, the offense is going to be dangerous. We know that. We know how good Lamar Jackson is. I mean, he's great. He can throw the ball. He can run. I mean, if you don't keep good contain on Lamar Jackson, I mean, the chances of you stopping him is not very good. And, you saw the Baltimore Ravens offense clicking. But, kind of towards the end of that game, you kind of saw the Ravens not doing so well. And, you had the Derrick Henry fumble. And once again, I mean, unlike Derrick Henry to fumble, I mean, you don't really hear Derrick Henry fumbling twice in a season. And, you saw Derrick Henry on the sideline. He was distraught. And that was kind of almost like the turning point once again. And even though I'm not saying it was Derrick Henry, I'm not saying that Derrick Henry was the reason why the Ravens lost the game. I think it just wasn't great execution by the Baltimore Ravens offense late in the game. And not only that, the Detroit Lions defense pass rush was getting to Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson, he just did not look comfortable back there for the Baltimore Ravens. And it was kind of one of those nights where it started out great and it didn't end very well for the Baltimore Ravens. But my biggest concern really isn't with the Ravens offense. It's really with the Ravens defense. And this Ravens defense hasn't necessarily looked good through the first 3 weeks. Now, yes, they allowed the Buffalo Bills to come back and win the game, but that wasn't all the defense's fault. Then last week you saw the Baltimore Ravens defense have a pretty good game against the Cleveland Browns. They only held the Browns to 17 points. And then this week you kind of saw the Ravens defense struggle in this game, and you saw them give up 38 points to the Detroit Lions. So it really isn't the offense that's the biggest issue, because we all know what the Baltimore Ravens offense has. I mean, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, the obvious right there. I mean, those two guys, we know how special those two guys are, but then you also have Zay Flowers, who the Detroit Lions did a great job shutting down in this game. I mean, Zay didn't really have his first catch until the second half of the game, so the Lions did a great job covering him. And then the Ravens also have Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews. They brought DeAndre Hopkins over from the Kansas City Chiefs during the offseason, which that was huge for them. I mean, that's like icing on the cake for the Baltimore Ravens. Adding DeAndre Hopkins to the receiving group when you already have Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers, just icing on the cake for Baltimore with all the offensive weapons that they have. And it was a struggle for the Baltimore Ravens. So, I'm not saying the Baltimore Ravens season is over, but they definitely got to work on the defensive side of the ball. I still think the Baltimore Ravens, they're still one of the most dangerous teams in the AFC. They do have Josh Allen and the Bills competing for that best spot. You really still can't count out the Kansas City Chiefs, even though the Chiefs have not looked really great the first 3 weeks. And, no explosive plays coming from the Chiefs, even though they did beat the New York Giants on Sunday night, but still a very sloppy win for the Kansas City Chiefs. And look, the Baltimore Ravens, they got a big game against the Chiefs in Kansas City. I think if the Baltimore Ravens can fix their defensive issues, not that, in 1 week they're going to have all their defensive issues solved. That's not going to happen in 1 week. But, the Baltimore Ravens, even though it wasn't a great night for Baltimore, I'm not going to sit here and say 3 weeks into the season that this Ravens team is done and all this. Really, to be honest with you, I can't come on this show and make some asinine comment like, oh, the Baltimore Ravens, they're finished. No, we're 3 weeks into the season. The Ravens, yes, there's things that they need to get fixed. No question about that. But the Baltimore Ravens, if they can fix some of those defensive woes that they've had, I think this team has a pretty good chance to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And not only that, the Baltimore Ravens, they have the better offense right now compared to the Kansas City Chiefs. If, how crazy is it for me to say that? But right now the Ravens do. And, they're going to be facing a good team that has a really good defense. Steve Spagnuolo, we all know about that Steve Spagnuolo defense. They like to disguise coverages. They like to disguise pressure. They bring a bunch of exotic blitzes. You really don't know where it's coming from. So it's going to be a tough game for the Baltimore Ravens. No question about that. But I still have all the confidence in the world in the Baltimore Ravens. They got way too dangerous of a team to be sitting here saying that this team can't turn it around. So I still have all the confidence in the world. Yes, the Baltimore Ravens need to get some things fixed, but other than that, the Baltimore Ravens, I still have confidence that they will do some great stuff this year because, like I said, they've got Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry in the backfield. I mean, you can't count out the Baltimore Ravens. But that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed my show. That's all the time that I have for you guys today. Not only that, make sure to tune in for some more NFL game recaps, because guess what? I got some more NFL recaps coming up for you. I will have an NFL game recap for you pretty much every single week, and you don't want to miss it. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Also, make sure you also go to my Spotify page and give me a follow as well. So you're listening to the Matt the Stat Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Matt the Stat. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Wednesday afternoon.